everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I am Jody Grunwald. This week, I am super excited to share conversations that I had with entrepreneurs from around the world. A new episode each day from Monday, December 13th to Friday, December 17th will air as my guests will share their journey to entrepreneurship. Being an entrepreneur is not easy. It takes tenacity, determination, motivation, and the ability to just keep going, even when it may seem like there are so many hurdles to jump over, or that there are others out there that may be doing something very similar. If you have a fire in your belly to do something that is calling directly to you, then listen in to hear how these entrepreneurs found their differentiator and brought an idea into reality. On Monday, December 13th, you will hear from my guest Nadine van Leerup from the Netherlands, founder of the Orange Typewriter. Nadine is an international copywriter helping businesses to communicate successfully abroad. She is also the host of the Special Needs Supermom podcast. On Tuesday, hear from Christine Scar from England. She shares how she left being a full-time architect to start Kvist Interior Designs and the newly launched Kvist Boutique. On Wednesday, Joanne Colella from Arizona talks about how she went from being an editor-in-chief of 5 monthly magazines to starting her own communications business. On Thursday, take a trip with me to Dubai, where Nadine Soa shares her Where's Home journey and how she helps expats relocate. Then finally on Friday, join Charlotte Lester from the UK as she talks about her Burnout Slayer Toolbox. We all know someone who has experienced burnout. If we haven't experienced it ourselves, she has tools that can be of assistance to all of us. These are 5 entrepreneurs who have decided it was time to control their destiny. Listen in to hear stories of inspiration that actually may inspire you to make today the day that you take steps towards reaching your entrepreneurial goals. Please subscribe to the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel or stream this podcast on all streaming sites. Visit todayisthedayliveit.com to learn more about our upcoming International Changemakers Forum. It is time to challenge ourselves and disrupt the status quo. This is an international networking opportunity along with 6 Ignite Your Spark live breakout sessions with over 30 of my Changemaker guests who are leaders, CNN heroes, TEDx speakers, and more. All of this will be done via Zoom on March 24th. You do not want to miss this inaugural event. You can purchase tickets on todayisthedayliveit.com. Again, visit todayisthedayliveit.com and follow us on social media at todayisthedayliveit. The views expressed by all Today's the Day Changemakers podcast guests are their own. Their appearance on the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast does not imply any endorsement of them or any entity that they represent. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I am Jody Grunwald, and as I say every week, I get to interview the most incredible people from around the world. So today I have Charlotte Lester with me. Hi, Charlotte. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you on, and I know we've been trying to get this to happen, and it makes it more difficult when there's a time difference. So just so everybody knows, Charlotte is coming to us from Essex in the UK, right outside of London, right?
Yep, that's right. So just on the outskirts.
That's awesome. So Charlotte, I'm going to read your bio, and then we're going to get into a great conversation. I've really been looking forward to this conversation. So Charlotte Lester is the founder of the Burnout Slayer Toolbox, which offers a wide array of products and services to help combat burnout. So everybody can understand now why I'm excited about this conversation. From our courses and programs that will help you build the foundations for success to luxurious products that will make you feel amazing, we have it all. Show everybody that beautiful shirt that if you can see it, display the day. I'm excited to talk about that. Plus, our consulting services and business management and implementation agency are there to help business owners who find themselves in operational weeds and need some guidance getting back on the road of pure joy in business and life. How many of you out there are feeling that way? In addition to running her business, Charlotte was a co-author in an Amazon best-selling book. What's the title of the book, Charlotte?
So that's, it's actually a series. So it's Crazy Daisy and it's book 2.
Ooh, okay, we have to talk about that too. It has appeared on many podcasts and been a guest expert in multiple groups and memberships. Charlotte has an amazingly supportive husband, 2 daughters, and 2 rescue dogs. She's also a mental health campaigner for a well-known charity in the UK. Being a sufferer of OCD and experiencing firsthand the effects mental health has on people and families is the driver for Charlotte to want to support as many people as possible to not get to a crisis point in their business. Wow, Charlotte, that was a great bio and so much to unpack. Every piece, I'm like, okay, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. As I was reading beforehand, I'm like, oh boy, I'm in trouble. There's so much in here. But
thank you.
But let's start out with what got you to really focus in on burnout, because set the stage. So many of us are there. We were there before COVID, then COVID hit, and that just kind of launched a lot of depression, and then people trying to work from home and handle kids and everybody all at the same time. It's such a juggle. So where did your passion for that start?
It's really around the mental health aspects of it, because although burnout is not just a mental health aspect, it's also physically as well. Once people really burn out, there's so many symptoms, and most people, once they burn out, they think, well, I'm never going back to that business again. I'm cutting all strings with it because that caused me to burn out. And that really broke my heart, because people have put their heart and soul into this business, and they ultimately just felt consistently overwhelmed, consistently stressed out, and feeling like there's just no end to it, which then led to more physical symptoms with the headaches and exhaustion and kind of depression to an extent that is really, really hard to recover from. So the whole emphasis around burnout for me is to really shine a light on the symptoms, because most people say when they've burnt out, they say, it just happened. I don't know where it came from. Whereas actually there's so many symptoms that happen in the run up to that. And most of the time it's around a year long, if not slightly longer, slightly less, but around a year where they will have these symptoms, and they're just thinking, we live in a society now where we're told business is hard, you need to hustle, you need to get up earlier, you need to create more time. And ultimately that leads to people to burn out, because they're thinking, okay, well, if everyone's telling me it's meant to be hard, then maybe I'm just meant to feel this way. And they don't associate those symptoms with burnout until it's too late. And that's then, I always say it's much easier to prevent burnout than what it is to recover from burnout. And that's really where I want to help people to really understand the symptoms of burnout. And, it's not saying if you're overwhelmed, you're on that road to burnout. If you're overwhelmed consistently, daily, most of the time, then there's a very high chance that you are on that road to burnout. But if you're overwhelmed on the odd day, or, you're stressed out, things haven't gone well, but then, you're not feeling that stress and that pull on other days, then chances are that is just the business stress side of things. So it's kind of showing those different sides to it, and when you really need to be making some changes in your business to make sure you don't hit that burnout block.
It's what you're saying. You're just totally speaking to me here, because I remember working in nonprofit, and I talk about this on the podcast many times, working those 60 to 80-hour weeks, feeling so energized in the beginning of all of that. But you're right. I actually can remember the moment where I said, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Like it felt like it suddenly hit me, like you said, but there were signs along the way of exhaustion. Working till 3 a.m. should have been, a sign by itself.
Yeah.
But so what you have a toolkit, that I know that you talk about, your toolbox. And so talk to us a little bit about how do we catch it before we get to the point where we're like, I don't know if I can continue to do this.
So I really, really say, so within the toolbox that I work with, the Burnout Slayer Toolbox is kind of a new concept, but it brings all my offerings together in a really succinct way, because they all have the prevention of burnout at the core value of what they're there for. So I always say to people, especially as an example with outsourcing, so when they're outsourcing, say, our agency side with its business management and implementation, people will say, oh, I just need to outsource this thing. Whereas actually sometimes if people outsource too soon, or they outsource the wrong things, that can lead them to burnout, because they're outsourcing, they're spending money, they're working harder to compensate for that money, and they're not getting the return back from it. So my main mission is to help people understand what tools they need at the right time, so they don't end up on that road. Because a lot of the time, you know, there's a lot of virtual assistants, as example, as freelancers out there that will just say, oh, I've got a new client. Whereas actually there's so many different elements that go into taking on that new client. You know, has the client streamlined what they're doing? Are they outsourcing strategies that work? You know, are they going to bring back a return? Because if a strategy don't work, don't invest the money for someone to do that strategy for you, because you're not going to get that return back. And that's often one of the biggest mistakes that I find clients make, is they do outsource things because they're told to outsource these things. Whereas actually you need to pull back in your business to really evaluate what is working, what can be automated, then look at outsourcing it. And then look at, have you actually created the foundations to sustain this going forward? So have you created your systems, processes? Have you looked at your tools you're using? Because again, so many people will pay out for different tools that they don't utilize, they're not necessarily using. And it's just making sure that you really create that structure in your business that really, really helps you to prevent yourself from becoming overwhelmed, and making sure that you're on that right road.
So, who is your ideal client? Obviously, somebody who might be dealing with burnout. But what are your first in your first meeting with that person? What are the types of things that you may go over with them?
Yeah. So the first meeting is mainly around where they are in their business. Most of the time, our clients will come to us, it will be they're overwhelmed. They're feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling a bit lost because they don't know where to go. They've maybe tried outsourcing, probably not worked very well, or they're not utilizing their team as well as they should be, so they're not getting that return back. So we really sit down and look at where they are at the moment, what's happening, how we can pull back on that overwhelm, how we can create structure that's going to stop them feeling that they have to be doing everything all the time, and really set out a business that means that they can take a holiday. Because I think that's something that so many business owners fail to do, because they think, I can't possibly take a day off, let alone a week, you know. And ultimately you want to be able to take a 2-week holiday, you know, a 6-week vacation if that's what you would like to do, but you need to have a business that's going to sustain that. So we really look at building up those foundations and those building blocks to be able to enable you to do that.
Absolutely, it makes perfect sense. And I think it's not a one size fits all for everybody. Everybody's businesses are so different. And even two businesses that are the same, the owners are very different and unique. We're all originals, right? So
yeah,
different things. So where did you start your career?
So I started my career in corporate. So I was working for one of the UK's leading banks, worked there for about 13 years, and ended up moving on to run my own business. So within corporate, I was working with some of the key stakeholders. I was working within marketing department, within private banking, as a PA, EA, and then business manager. So really kind of built up my skill set there, and then realized that actually, you know, I wanted to make more of an impact. And in corporate, I think we can kind of be contained into this box of, this is your job role, this is what you do. And I didn't want to do that anymore. Mental health was a really big passion of mine, a really big thing that I thought was really important. And I wanted to make more of an impact there. And I found actually, if I started my own business, I can have that impact and I can help more people, and not have to sit from the outside view looking in that you know, these amazing business owners are burning out and just giving up. I wanted to be able to help them to continue through.
So, you know, this interview is going to be part of my entrepreneur roundtable from around the world, because I am, you know, I truly believe that most people don't really understand what it takes to be an entrepreneur, because you know, working for another organization, it's not easy. We all know that.
Yeah.
But you said something that's very true. A lot of times you have to fit into a box because your supervisor says, this is the way it's going to be. This is the way it's going to go. Like it or not, this is the way it's always been done. Whether it works or not, sometimes you have those supervisors as well. But when you become an entrepreneur, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about how this felt for you, especially because you mentioned that you had OCD. So I can imagine how it felt to make sure you had all your ducks in a row, right? is that we don't have projections from the prior year when you start. We don't have, there's no crystal ball. It's literally taking a leap of faith and saying, I'm going to do this for me, leaving the big money behind and the big title behind. Even though you have owner, and we'll talk about this after, it may not have the same effect as if you were, you know, the CEO of Bank of America.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about what it was like and dealing with OCD, taking that leap and knowing that, you know, there's no crystal ball of what the future is going to bring.
Yeah. I think for me, it was really, I mean, when I gave up corporate was around the same time that I was pregnant with my second daughter as well. And I realized that actually I needed more flexibility in life as well. I wanted to be able to make impact, and I wanted to be around for my children. And that was really the driving force for me to start out. You know, I came from corporate, everything was set up, software was set up, you weren't allowed to access certain software, you weren't allowed to automate, you weren't allowed, and there were so many frustrations around, why am I wasting my time doing this thing? You know, it can so easily be automated. And when I then came into business and I realized, you know, I can do these things. I can make things so much simpler and so much easier for myself. But I had to learn the tools, and I had to learn the way of doing business. You know, I never came from a background or a family with family run businesses. You know, but having a business was always something that other people done. It wasn't what I done. It was, you know, I went out to get a job and work hard for someone else. So actually changing my mindset around, I can do this, really, really made a difference. And I think the OCD aspect of it was fine until I then started to realize that actually when things become stressful, when things become a lot, that's one of my main triggers with OCD. And OCD for me could then last as an episode for a couple of weeks at least. And I've got more of like a check-in OCD. So it would constantly be playing in my mind. Have I done this? Have I done that? And almost taking over my life. So that was then when I really felt that the impact I needed to make was around mental health. And that's where I could make that impact, because I had and still have mental health with OCD, and how to overcome that. Because I think some people, when they haven't had those kind of struggles themselves, it can be very hard for people to understand. For an example, people would always say to me, you need to journal every day. You know, journaling is what's going to work for you. And I'd done it for a year. I hated every single moment of it, because what I'd done, because of the OCD, I created that into my ritual. So actually I added that to my list of things that I have to do, which completely takes away the reasoning behind journaling, you know. So I have to be very, very careful around, sure, I've got routines, you know, I've got structure, but I have to be very careful around what's in that structure and what I do day in, day out. And that's something that many people wouldn't have understood if it weren't for me saying, actually, that doesn't work for me, and it doesn't work for me because X, Y, and Z. And then they kind of realize, but I think there's still that kind of misunderstanding of, but you do need to journal because that's what you need to do. But it's like, but actually it's not going to work for everyone. So it's really kind of helping people to understand that, you know, life isn't a cookie cutter, business isn't a cookie cutter, you know, everything is different, and we have to bring out and treat people as individuals. You know, when there's something that's not working, how can we adapt? How can we still create those results, but without doing that specific thing that isn't working for that person?
You know, you just gave the person who may be listening to this that has OCD permission. And I think that's one thing we always look for, right? We look for permission of, well, I don't feel like I really want to do this, but yet I've been told I need to. And then hearing somebody say, well, I don't like doing that either. And so I decided I'm not going to keep that on my list because it doesn't work for me. Yeah. And sometimes that's the thing, is that we think we have to, you know, and somewhere someone told us we must. And we don't. It has to be what works for you. And it's, as we said before, it's not one size fits all. So it's interesting. So I haven't been diagnosed officially with ADHD, but I honestly believe I have that. And my sister has not been officially diagnosed with OCD, but she totally believes that she has that. So we run a business together, a nonprofit. So you have an ADHD person and an OCD person working together, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, throw spaghetti at the wall. And when I go to her and say, I've got a great idea, she is like, wants to run out the front door. You know what I'm saying? Because she knows that means there's going to be a lot, it's going to be a lot of input for her, right? You know,
Yeah.
I have this nickname of the tornado in the family. So for the OCD people, that is not, that's like, oh no, here she comes. So
Yeah.
it's very, so how do you, I'm sure you deal a lot with people who are the other end of the spectrum of that, which would
Yeah.
be on that ADHD. So how do you manage the balance between that? Would you tell people who work together with other people who are not like them?
Yeah. So I think for me, it works quite well because I am managing my OCD. You know, there's certain things and there's certain triggers that I can look out for that I would have known when I was in corporate, but in business, it was a whole different ball game. You know, I had to figure these out again. And now that I'm aware of them and I am aware of tactics that I can use to help me to combat when I'm feeling that, okay, I'm not feeling great. This is going to end up in a bit of an episode if I don't pull back now. So it's really being self-aware. But because of that, it means that when I have clients, most of the time they will be, you know, chaotic because they're overwhelmed, they're stressed, they're thinking, oh, I need to do these things like last year. But because I've got that element of kind of calmness, I suppose, around me, it kind of brings us back to the middle ground of, okay, look, let's look at this logically and let's look at why you're doing this thing. Why do you want to do this thing? What's the goal around it? What are you going to get back in return from it? And it ultimately really works. It's like opposites, you know, opposites attract sometimes. And I think that really works. And I think that's why people that are feeling overwhelmed and stressed out are my ideal clients. You know, other people I'll speak to, peers that are in the support industry, will say, I couldn't think of anything worse. You know, I don't want someone that's chaotic and overwhelmed and stressed out. I want someone that knows, you know, what they want doing and just get on with it. Whereas, you know, I'm the opposite. So I think it's kind of finding that balance. And I think you then attract those people, you know. So if they're the people that I'm talking to, my marketing's geared to them, you know, they're the people that are going to come to me.
How can people find you and follow you?
So you can mainly find me over on Instagram at I am Charlotte Lester. That's actually a new account. And I am on Facebook and LinkedIn and all the other platforms. And that is the Burnout Slayer Toolbox.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So tell us about the shirt, because that's new, right?
It is. It's very new. So that is about a month and a half now. So only in the UK at the moment, but I am working on getting it changed. So we'll be shipping internationally very, very soon. But the shirt is all around kind of that middle ground, because what I felt was actually clients would say, I haven't got the money to invest in outsourcing or investing in courses, especially earlier on in business. And I think sometimes we just need something that's going to pick us up, you know, something that we can see, that we can feel. And, you know, it's 100% cotton. It's really, really soft. It just feels nice. And that's ultimately what I wanted to achieve with this top and jumper was just around that kind of feeling of, you know, contentment, and I am enough and I can, you know, slay the day, as it says.
I love it. I love it. So for those listening, Charlotte and I met by chance through the Female Entrepreneur Association, which is a great organization. And so you had put out, you know, what do people feel about? So this is a great story because I feel like sometimes you look for the validation and it doesn't come. Other times you look for it and then all of a sudden it comes at, you know, it starts pouring in. So you put out as a Facebook post about, what do you think, right? It was something about, what does everybody think? Would you buy a shirt that said slay the day and all of that? And then what happened?
It went absolutely insane. I couldn't believe it. I think people thought that was a really good sales technique. And it actually was not a sales technique in the slightest. All I had done was create one jumper for myself and just thought, actually, do you know what? I think someone else would maybe like this, but I don't know. So I want to ask. I also know, it's not going to be one of the cheapest tops because it is cotton, it's more about the quality of it. And I thought, I want to ask if people would pay the kind of price points around the jumpers and whether or not they would want this. And it just went absolutely mad to the extent that people were saying, well, can I buy it now? Have you got a link that I can buy it now? And I literally had nothing else set up. I didn't have the shop set up. I had no sales link. I didn't have any kind of actual pricing. I just had, this is a top, this is the idea. What do you think?
I love it. And what I loved is, right, so I was one of those that signed in and said, yes, I would purchase it. I'm in the United States, which is obviously an issue for shipping so far. But I know you're working on that and I can't wait. I'm on the waiting list. I'm excited about that. But I loved watching like that just connection, because I'm all about connection. I do coaching and it's all around that, which is watching the connection of people being like, I need that. Like, I need to wear that to feel good. It just remind me that I can slay the day. And I thought that was just such a great thing to witness. So now, how do people in the UK buy it? And those of us like myself, you can go on the waiting list.
Yes. So you can go to the website, which is burnout-slayer.com/shop. And then there's also a link for a waitlist as well. So you can sign into the waitlist there. If you're in the UK, then you can purchase the jumper there too. And we've got some other products on there as well now, which is really exciting.
So that is great. So those who do buy can buy now. Those who are in the UK, it's ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So
that's awesome. Oh my gosh. So I want to talk a little bit, because I know we're running out of time. I want to just talk for a minute about the books. Right. So you said you're on number 2.
Yes. So number 2 book, which is a series, and it's an amazing book series that a lady called Trudy has pulled together. And it's all around people's stories. It's all around inspiring people to create a business, and people that are sitting there like myself when I was in corporate thinking, I can't run a business, knowing that you can. You don't need to have any magic qualification that means that you can create a business. You can create a business and you are enough, because I think that's one thing that I wish I'd known back then, was that I am enough, and I'm enough as I am now. So
that's great. That's exciting. And congratulations on the books. That's really fun. What message do you have today for someone who is listening that is an entrepreneur, that, let me back that up, that wants to be an entrepreneur, right? That thinks about, has all those gremlins in their mind. People might even be saying to them, there's too many people right now that own businesses. There's not enough. We don't need another person who's an entrepreneur. What do you tell them?
There's always space. And I think one of the biggest things is people say the market's saturated. It's not. Because how you're going to deliver something is completely different to how someone else does. And you're going to attract the right people. For me, it's attracting people that are really struggling with their mental health, that are really struggling to keep their personal life and their business afloat, because they're just feeling that there's no other way to go. But for someone else that's doing the same thing as me, they're probably not going to attract the same people. So just know that there is space and that you are enough, and just go for it.
Yeah, it's a great message, and it's so true. And I know that if you don't know how, and I know I'm struggling with certain things of not knowing how. We all do. Yeah. We get to that point. It's asking questions. It's finding those who know. Sometimes it costs a little bit. Sometimes you can get some things that are donated, or time, do some sort of a knowledge sharing of some sort. Do you have any special things that you can share for those who are just in that place of, I don't know where to start?
Yeah, I would say break it down. What do you need to do? And most of the time people will say, when they're starting out, I need to create a website, I need to create socials, I need to create this. No, you need to go out and make a sale so you can validate what you're doing, and then you can come back to all that stuff. You don't need a website, you don't need social media to get started. You just need to be able to make that sale, however that is. If it is social media, fine, but you don't need to work on all that stuff yet. Just go out there and do it.
It's so true. And even in the coaching world, they're always like, okay, what's your name going to be? What, you got to get a business card. You have to do a website. You have to, and it's not true. It most important is to talk to people who you think will connect with you so that you could start building your network. And that to me is the most, most important, is get that network going. Get those people who believe in you, who can help you. So I enjoyed our conversation so much, and I'm going to ask you the last question that I ask all of my guests. And that is, if you knew then what, and you almost answered it before, so it could be something completely different. If you knew then what you know now, and it could be more than one thing, what would you tell your younger self?
That to go for it, and that I am enough just as I am. Just knowing that you don't need to be someone else to be able to make your mark in the online world. I think, or any world, I think we can sometimes feel that we need to pretend to be someone that we're not in order to get those results. And it's just knowing that you need to go out there and be yourself, because, someone is going to relate to you and you're going to connect with someone. And it's so much more joyful when you're being yourself.
It's so true. And I think that a lot of people feel like, yeah, that sounds easy for someone who's looking back, right? But it's not easy for me today, because everything seems so overwhelming and big. And bite-sized pieces sometimes seem hard, but it's the only way. Big picture can be very overwhelming. Take it from the big picture person. It can get very overwhelming. Charlotte, what anything else, any other messages you'd like to share with those who may be listening?
I just want to say, if you are feeling that you want to create a business, if you're wanted to kind of step into the business world and something's holding you back, kind of don't let anything hold you back. Just go for it. That what's the worst that could happen?
Right. We don't, I'm trying to think of it. I think it's Brene Brown who says, you don't fail, you fall. And we fall as babies all the time, and we get back up, and we, dust ourselves off. We may shed a tear, but we always get back up. And that happens as adults. It's just a different falling. So I think you're 100% right. It's like, just do. I know Nike says just do it, but it is just do it. And sometimes, like myself, when I launched, I was still working the other job. It was hard to manage both at the same time. But what you said before was so perfect about the fact that, like, sometimes, like, you were pregnant, you were having a baby, and you decided you wanted flexibility, and that pushed you. Sometimes we need that little push. But make sure you don't get to the burnout place. That's the push, because, no matter what, before you get to that space, reach out to Charlotte. One more time, Charlotte, how do they get in touch with you?
Yep. So I'm mainly over on Instagram. I am Charlotte Lester, and also on the other platforms, but mainly on Instagram.
Charlotte, thank you for your time coming in from the UK.
Thank you so much.
So appreciate it. And you have to come back and give us an update, especially when these shirts are ready, because
you're waiting patiently.
Absolutely waiting patiently for that shirt. Because I was, and too bad, right? The holidays are coming. So hopefully we'll get it for another holiday. But thank you so much for helping people and explaining to people about OCD and mental health and being there to support people. We need more change makers like you. So appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
So I'm going to say what I say at the end of every single podcast. Today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what small or large step are you taking today to get yourself closer to your goals? Don't forget to like, subscribe, share the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. And I hope you have a fabulous week, everyone. Bye, Charlotte.
Bye.